Hey there, and welcome back to the NCMU podcast. My name is Bubba Stallcup, one of your hosts, alongside my other host, Mark Lutz.
We never get to record together. I think we recorded together. Ever. Like when I started the podcast, we recorded together in season 1, I think. And that was it. Yeah.
And we decided that was enough. We were done with that.
We were just sick of each other completely.
Got to separate each other like a bunch of pit bulls, you know? Mm-hmm. Hey, and we are also joined with Zach Miller. And we're going to, if you guys don't know who Zach is, I am so sorry that you don't know who Zach is. I bet you do know, but you don't know. This is Street Bear. This is our famous Saint Bear that you can see all over the place in Lutz, and you saw in person at NCMS if you were there. But the three of us are going to dive into this year's NCMS. But if this is your first time with us here at the Nerd Culture Ministry Underground, we are dedicated to raising up and equipping the next generation of nerd culture ministers and missionaries. And that's not just something we say. It's something that we put ourselves out there. We give of our time. We're going to talk a lot about that today. Our money, our organization's efforts, all of that stuff we give towards helping you better love and serve the nerds that are in your space. So let's just get right into it. We are coming off of the heels several weeks now at the time of this recording. Probably close to a month now. What year am I? Yeah, we're close to a month out from
like 2.5 weeks, something like that.
Yeah. 2.5 weeks? No way.
No, 3 weeks. This is a full 3 weeks.
I don't know. I'm not sure.
I say that like it's a huge difference. It's not 2.5. It's 3 weeks, idiot.
Yeah. Do you guys ever seen, what was it? Is it Total Recall? Where that woman's like, 2 weeks?
I think I saw Total Recall as a kid. I remember a couple of scenes.
That's a gnarly movie to watch as a kid.
Yeah, I remember a couple of scenes my dad had forgot was in that movie.
Yeah, I didn't watch it because I'm a Christian, so.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Well, hey, now's the perfect time.
I grew up on like Platoon, man, so. Yeah.
Well, hey, let's just get right into it. We are kind of coming off the heels, like I said, of NCMS, however many weeks ago it was at this point. You could be listening to this 6 years from now. So we're not going to sweat the small stuff here. But we want to kind of talk about some of the behind the scenes, how the sausage was made. This was all about Onward, right? We talked about that theme for several months before we landed on it. But this idea of moving from like this state of inactivity to going in the direction, at least taking the first step to where God was calling you to do, this movement mentality. And so, Zach, why don't you just kind of start us off here, man? Like, what do you think was one of the thoughts behind like us getting that ball rolling? What was some of the push points that we were leaning into?
I think we had just observed and heard and experienced from a lot of our friends and in previous years of NCMS, there's just so many people who have these really, really awesome ideas of things that they want to do. Whether it's a YouTube channel they want to make or a ministry they want to start at a local game store or at their local church or a Twitch channel that they want to start running, whatever that is, we would hear from people like, man, I have this idea and I'm not sure how to take that first step, or they've been waiting on the right moment somehow. They might not use that language, but like, it's almost like they're waiting for permission to start. And I think so much of what we were hoping to do is just recognize that there's all these people, and many of whom we don't know. That's part of the point, was that, you know, for pastors, there's all these people in your church who would love to be engaged in ministry, and they don't know. They're just sitting there like, I don't think my calling is to go and build that house. That's probably, I remember that's something that you mentioned during one of your keynotes, Bubba, like, if I build the house, it's going to fall down. Like, you don't need me building your house. You need me doing the things that I'm gifted in. And so people, just knowing that and saying, okay, great. All these people that are just waiting to be activated to go and do ministry and impact people and have these big, audacious ideas, to be able to, you know, both inspire them with stories of people who have gone and done big, audacious things and done it successfully and how that looked and all the sweat equity that goes into it. And then also practically equip them with really tangible workshops. And I think that was just, it was on all of our hearts as we talked about it. We talked about the people that we knew come to NCMS and might come to NCMS and the types of people we talk to on a daily basis. And I think all of us really felt like, man, that's something that people could benefit from, is is equipping them with inspiration, tools, and community to go and do the thing, to make it, to not wait for permission, to just start on something.
Yeah, Mark, I've heard you talk about this when we were at Expo Global. We were doing that shared workshop, and you talked about just being permissive. Can you kind of like lean into that just a little here to kind of feed off of what St. Bear was talking about?
Yeah, I think a lot of people are nervous about trying something new, but I think also a lot of people don't feel like they have the spiritual. There's always been a level of gatekeeping inside of the church, and to a certain extent, that's appropriate, right? Like when you take off all of the gatekeeping, you also take out all the checks and balances for things like heresy. So we do want to dodge that. But there's been a lot of gatekeeping inside the church world towards anything from gaming and nerd culture historically, because most senior pastors just don't understand it. Most church leadership doesn't get it. A lot of people who are kind of inside the church are isolated from it, not very, they don't really want to consider embracing it. And I think that ends up landing a lot of people with a heart for these things and passion, but just without the spiritual permission to do one of two things: either to consider the idea that the things they love is a mission field, or if they've considered it and they have an idea, let's say they've been watching, we'll use two examples, two of the guys who are at NCMS this year with us, Pastor Dustin or Deadly Dill, right? They've been watching them and they see these guys actively sharing the gospel on Twitch. They see an example of this. They become inspired. I would like to do something like this. There's a tremendous number of people like that in our community at Lutz, and but they lack the permission to start. And I think some of our heart with NCMS was to give people permission to start. Like, let's look at some of these individuals who've been in creative fields their entire lives, who are now getting the courage, right, to say, hey, I want to do something that is deeply connected to my faith and also animation, or I want to do something that's deeply connected to my faith and also video game development. And to see that other people have done that ahead of them, I think gives people courage and permission to be able to say, hey, I do love Dungeons and Dragons, and I do want to see that thing that I love also be used in God's kingdom. And so, we had a couple of guys at NCMS this past year who, they already had that, but then a couple of them were thinking about, hey, how do we expand a podcast network or something that uses or is in the world of TTRPGs? And also, we have now permission to be able to share the gospel in that space. And so I think that was a huge heart for Onward as well, was just, hey, you're not sinning, you're not wrong, you're not evil by taking these things that you love, not just seeing them as a mission field, but also stepping into those mission fields.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting. For several years now, part of my repertoire of things to say to people is, stop waiting for somebody to give you permission to do the thing that God is calling you to do. Mm-hmm. That you're going to spend so much time and energy and effort convincing other people that you believe to have some form of spiritual authority over you to let you do the thing that God is calling you to do. When we see time and time again, people in the Bible, these fathers of the faith, right, that just hear from God and go and do. But I think the part that I've been missing in that was what you just said, was like, hey, sometimes people just need that little, hey, you could do this. It's not, we bless you, we send you out, you've been commissioned. It's just, yeah, I think you should follow the thing that God is calling in your life, right? And so that moment of, you can do it. And also, hey, here are, over 100 people in this room that are also in the same boat in some way, shape, or form. They've either started something, have thought about starting something, or they have started it, it's been successful, and now they're on the other side of it, right? Like, we have the entire spectrum in the room for NCMS. And so, man, I hope that the people that were there got something out of it. I say that as if they didn't. I mean, we have story after story after story of people who came up to us and were like, I think I need to do X, Y, and Z. Mark, you came up to me after, Denver and Jay Stews, and you're like, I think I need to maybe start a YouTube channel? Like, am I doing this right now? Which I thought was the craziest thing in the world. And anybody who knows Mark knows he's an absolute Luddite. He has a stone tablet as a cell phone. And so like, but that was the kind of experience that people were having at NCMS. They were like, man, maybe I should. You're starting to kind of think about and explore things that if you were just sitting at your house behind a computer screen, or, you know, maybe even just talking to somebody one-on-one, you might not have felt that, you know, thickness in the air, right? But when you're at an event like NCMS, it just kind of encourages and inspires you to do stuff.
Well, so, Bubba, let me ask you a question. Like, because I think maybe all three of us, I think a lot of people had that moment of like, aha moment, or like a permission moment, right? Of like, maybe we should do this, whether it be individually or as an organization. At what point did you have, that could be a conversation, and maybe I'm putting you on the spot. Maybe it was a workshop. Maybe it was one of the keynotes, but I suspect that each of us had one of those moments of like, not just a good idea, but also some level of permission to think outside the box or do something differently or step into something.
Yeah. I mean, for me, it was Kenny. Kenny sitting through his AI stuff. I mean, like I traffic in AI pretty heavily these days. I tell everybody my good friend and coworker, Claude, is helping me a lot. But I mean, to just really see that, like, Kenny had so much information that he couldn't get through it all. It was literally overwhelming, the amount of information. And I follow him on social media. And so I see the zeal at which he pursues this, not for his own sake, right? Not for, you know, pushing his brand higher or further, because he's got like 15 different brands that he's doing at any given moment, right? So what he's trying to do is he's trying to say, hey, church leaders, hey, people that are trying to follow the call of God in your life, here's how you can utilize this tool. And I've resonated with that for so long. But for him to sit down and go, hey, let's talk about the different ways that you all are using AI, and to hear the different things in the room. And I mentioned one thing that we had been doing, which if you go on our website, lovethanerd.com, our mission section was built with ChatGPT. And for him to look at that and go, more of that. Hey, if you guys have any questions, talk to these people who are already using it. This is what you should be doing. Like, even just that little piece of like, I'm not going to stand in your way as you're moving. Dude, I've sat down and I've started to build and roadmap other things that we've been using already that are like what I would consider to be healthy uses, like conservative uses of AI, where it's not just slop, but how, and again, I've followed him more since then. How do you use this in a way that honors God? And so, I mean, for me, you would think, right? Like the three of us up here, hey, you guys are running this thing. There must be nothing else that you're learning. You're just dumping in and teaching people. If that's ever your thought, let us shatter that glass ceiling for you. Let us just absolutely ruin that mosaic. Never meet your heroes kind of a deal, because we are still growing and learning as people. Mark, you just celebrated your 38th birthday.
I am 38 years old.
38.
Yeah, getting old.
I turned 40 here in a couple weeks. Bear, nobody has any idea how old you are. You could be 1,000.
Me? No, I'm just saying Mark is actually, he's not actually 38. Mark's somewhere in the 80s range, I think.
3080. Yeah, he's 3080.
38 years old. Yeah.
But we're relatively young guys and young humans in this world. And so we're still like collecting and learning these things. Well, hey, I'm going to kick that over to Bear. Bear, what was your takeaway? What was your aha moment at NCMS?
I think you asked about things where you felt like, you know, you had permission or a chance, an aha moment. I think there were two kind of for me. One is, and we could come back to this separately, but one was years ago, right? It was so kind of unrelated, but years ago, just starting doing NCMS in the first place, and just having these thoughts of like, hey, what if we tried doing this thing? That would never happen, but wouldn't that be cool if we could get all these people together? And very much being in that mode of like, this is a big audacious goal. It will never happen though, because who am I? I'm just some person. I'm not a streamer. I'm not an influencer. So like nothing's going to come of this. And then all it took was having a few pretty bold conversations, throwing it out there when I had no reason to, or like I had a reason to, but I had no business throwing it out there. And now, years later, this has been around for years now. We've impacted a lot of people. It's made a difference. So we can come back to that a little bit more, but I think that was one moment that really has been formational for me, of just realizing that you don't have to wait for permission. Sometimes it's just making a big, bold ask, because the worst thing someone can say is no. And really everyone at some level is just cosplaying as a professional. And so it's just you do it too, just that person who's a streamer at one point just started being a whatever, right? Like they don't necessarily have, maybe surgeons and things have a difference in skill set, but like a lot of the time it's just someone that was willing to try. This year, one of the things that I get to be part of is a D&D podcast, and we are doing that on YouTube, and it's been really fun. And that was a similar thing. We just said, hey, we all like D&D. What if we tried making an offering out there for a family-friendly D&D offering done by Christians, Real Play podcast. And so we've been doing that for a while, and then we got to listen to Denver Moore and Jay Stu at NCMS. And I remember literally that night, the four of us, we sat down, and in the lobby of the castle, and said, hey, all of us have like 30 notes of things we could change tomorrow of how we're doing this. Just adjusting our thumbnails, adjusting our titles, adjusting the length and the strategy, and should we have 2 channels? Should we keep it as 1? All of these things that immediately we were like, hey, we could have a real difference. And it's not like now we suddenly just went viral since then, but it has been really cool where even just since NCMS, we've been able to see that practically change the reach and the efficacy of the videos we're putting out. And so that was really cool to just be like, hey, we don't have to like pay for some super expensive course. Like we just took what we learned right there and we could start applying it tomorrow.
I think that was probably one of the most tangible things of the whole conference was the people that came out of just Denver Moore and Jay Stu's workshop. Mm-hmm. Like, cause it was immediately, you saw thumbnails change and like you could tell, okay, people weren't just sitting idly by. Like you have to come with some sort of a moniker to these spaces, whether you're going to a church conference or NCMS or anything like that, where there's going to be like a lecture style people are teaching, even Sunday mornings or, Wednesday nights at Lutz or whatever your active discipleship moment is for your church and spiritual growth. You have to come in kind of moldable, right? If you come in with a superiority complex where you're like, hey, I can't wait to critique this and to cut it apart and to point and poke holes and all sorts of stuff, then you're just not going to grow at all. But if you come in malleable and you're like, all right, hey, I'm going to make at least one change after I leave this place. I think everybody chose that same one change to start with from that workshop, which was thumbnails. So, but what, like, I want us to kind of think about that. Like as we go in to creating something like NCMS, like we're going to turn around and do it again next year. And we're talking about adding a whole bunch of stuff on Discord, and we'll kind of get into some of that hopefully later here in a little bit. But we want to create different things. We're not okay with being stagnant. We're never okay with the status quo. To go back and quote again, Denver Moore from that, we're either filling their bubble or we're not, right? And so we want to make sure that the things that we're offering to you all are things that are of value, that they're not just wasting your time. We don't necessarily want this to just be a place where Christians come to hang out. Like we want this to be a summit, and summits are challenging, but they're very rewarding at the same time. So
I think it's worth just noting Denver, I think, is a really good example of, we're talking about this idea of Onward. We're talking about this idea of like not having to wait for permission, just becoming bold, stepping out in whatever this calling is. Denver's a great example of someone who, as part of this planning team, I literally just saw on Twitter one day, this guy, someone must have commented on one of his posts or something that brought it onto my feed, saw this guy who was posting about, not in a braggadocious way, but just being honest about some of the clientele the type of clientele that he gets to work with, the type of work that he gets to do. This guy who's working with YouTube channels with 10 million plus subscribers, having, really, really doing an incredible job at the apex of his game. And I saw that he had a Bible verse in his bio and thought, hey, maybe this guy's Christian. Maybe let's explore. And so to a guy who has no business talking to me, I just sent a DM out of nowhere on Twitter and said, hey, I helped plan this event. Here's some information about it. Would you be at all interested? Let's talk. And at the first message I sent, he didn't reply to, and he shouldn't have. There was a random dude out of nowhere, right? And then I just followed up a couple of times, and eventually he was like, hey, I just saw this. Hadn't noticed it before. So sorry. This seems awesome. It's right. I feel like God has been calling me to be a little bit more outward facing, more bold about my Christianity and how I'm using these skills and these gifts that he's given me to pour into the kingdom. If you had asked me 6 months ago, I probably would have said, no chance. I've always been a faceless YouTube channel. But you're asking me today, and I've been really feeling like God's calling me in this area. And so all of a sudden, hey, let's get on a phone call. We chat for like an hour. An hour-long phone call leads to some text conversations to all of a sudden, yeah, I'd love to come. Also, can I bring my friend who actually just moved out of the Springs area, but has his own channel of over 10 million subscribers. It's been, we could give you like countless examples of stories like that where we just reached out, and for what it's worth, could give you 3 times more stories of the people who we reached out to and never replied.
We never heard back.
Or said, no, that doesn't. People who I thought would be perfect fits would be total, and we're like, that doesn't sound good to me.
Well, I don't still one day. Yeah.
You're right. In the future, might.
I think it's easy to romanticize, like, once the event happens, like, you don't see all of the behind the scenes stuff and like what went into it. But it's easy to romanticize, like people were like, man, like Jay Stu and Denver Moore were there, and like we're highlighting those, but obviously we had great friends who were there and people who just absolutely killed it from main stage and workshops across the board. But it really was a collection of people that have no business being at a conference and a summit the size of what we were doing, with how long we've been doing it, paying as much as we can pay, but yet here they are,
as little as we can pay.
Here we are, but what people don't see is the hours of work behind the scenes, reaching out to people, making connections. I had a loose connection to somebody as well who, through somebody who's a very large Christian creator on YouTube. And I reached out a couple of times through this person. And finally the guy's like, you know what, man, I'm not even going to connect you to this dude. Like, I'll be honest with you. He's not going to want to do it. I'm not even going to like message him for you. And so, I've been like, I didn't even get a message to the person, let alone. But there's a lot of those, right? You have a lot of those moments where, you take a shot and it doesn't work, and that's okay. Like, you have to keep taking those shots, and eventually, there are some that like God works it out, like having Butch Hartman at it. Man, that's a wild story. I don't know if we want to get into it deeply, but that wasn't just one shot. It was a multitude, and it was multitudes of following up. I'm not throwing anybody under the bus, but having Caitlin there was amazing. But getting her there, if you were in our Discord, there was a point when she wasn't coming, and then she was able to be there. And that was through a great deal of persistence, not taking no the very first time that you hear it, and also just being able to discern when no is a no, and you're up a creek and don't try to call again. And I think going on behind the scenes, like if you could see the conversations going on in Discord and in text message, you would see like, these things don't just line up perfectly. There's a reason why it takes a year to pull one of these things off. And there's a reason why it takes so much time and energy to get them together too.
Yeah. I go to events and I feel like it would be easy for someone to assume coming to NCMS, there's a group of people, a whole company that's putting this on. And I'm not saying this because it's such an amazing event. I just think that's kind of the assumption whenever you go to something like this. There's some huge group and they're really well connected and they have all of this stuff going on, and that's how this thing gets put on. And even saying really well connected, I'm just saying like there's probably some level of assumption, and I just think it's empowering to know and hear that the reality is there's a handful of people. You're seeing a large portion of that here right now, us and a few other people who put a ton of work in every year, who just make bold asks, try difficult things, put a ton of time and energy in, and are willing to say, "Hey, I think this matters," and so let's try. And the worst that can happen is people say no. And and the same is true for anyone, right? Like there was no like someone came from on high and said you're allowed to go do this. We just said, "Hey, let's try to make this happen," and here we are.
Yeah, I think that we can kind of scale that, right? Like we're going to really kind of dig in a little bit here in just a second to NCMS, but to make it real to you, maybe listener or viewer, you're not going to start a conference. I actually don't recommend starting a conference. I don't normally recommend starting an organization. When we hear people that are starting 501c3s, Mark and I just kind of go, "Oh man, that person just went to the top of our prayer list. They're going to need a lot of help." But to kind of contextualize it, I mean, I get questions all the time where people are like, "Dude, how do I just even tell my pastor about what I'm doing?" Right? Mm-hmm. Like I'm online, I'm trying to play Rocket League or Fortnite or whatever, and just tell people about Jesus. How do I get my church to support that? Back up. How do I get my church to understand that? Back up. How do I get one person that I really care about not to think that I'm going to hell for what I'm doing? And so I think that listen to what Mark and Zach have said. Like it's about boldness. Very recently, just within the last week, I had my pastor pull me aside as we were doing there was a play that was going on at our church. He pulled me aside because he had invited somebody who was hurt from another area of Texas, had some church hurt. He invited me to come talk to them because he knew that this person was a nerd. The only way that I get to the point where my pastor pulls me aside to talk to somebody else who's hurt is that I wear my heart on my sleeve all the time. I'm not a closet nerd about it at all. The very first NCMS we did was at my church. And so you got to stay in the lane that God has put you in. You've got to be bold about the things that God has told you to do, even when everybody else tells you that it's crazy. This is Noah building an ark when there's no record of it raining like that before, right? Like we need to step out in boldness and in faith in the thing that God has called us to do. So take these stories that we're sharing and that we're going to continue to share and put them into that context wherever you are, whatever the thing is that you are like, "Man, I don't know if I can talk to that person. I don't know if I can." Just do it. The worst that they can do is tell you no. And we've all had people that have told us no. Every single one of us has had somebody who has said, "Nah, dog, I don't think so. That's not going to be it for me." And that's okay. I will tell you this. It has been my experience that sometimes those people come back around and go, "Hey, actually," after they see that the thing works. So you just stay the course, do the thing that God has called you to do, and prove to people that it's worth your time and effort. So, hey, let's peel this onion back a little bit. Let's talk a little bit about how that sausage is made. We did mention that we had people that should not have been there, that were there, and that's not a negative. That's a net positive for us. So I think that the biggest elephant in that room is Butch Hartman. We kind of touched on that just a little bit, but man, he's the creator of Fairly Odd Parents, the shaper of a lot of people's childhood. And he has I'd say recently, probably within the last 10 or 15 years, he's gone through his own spiritual reformation. We had him on this podcast not that long ago. I had a chance to interview him. He is a different person now than he was when he was making Fairly Odd Parents. And so that kind of opens him up to be a perfect person to come in and at the very least to show people, hey, just because you're not doing a quote unquote ministry doesn't mean that you can't be doing ministry. So what were some of the other maybe surprises for people that we had at NCMS?
Yeah. I think honestly for me, like I knew how smart Kenny was, and because I'm good friends with him, but I think most people just didn't know him. That was my permission moment, I think, for me, because I have coded a multitude of things with Claude since I've been home, and we in NCMS went straight to action and signed up for the nonprofit Claude
same
accounts. And like I came home and I've coded staff reviews. I coded a stats. Like I took all of our stats that we've gathered over the last handful of years and put it into a dashboard for my board meeting yesterday.
Yeah.
So like that was really cool. I think the other one that was maybe it was the biggest surprise for me was Chris Skaggs. I had known Chris, and I think I had interviewed Chris maybe on this podcast at one point, or maybe Bubba, it was you. I can't remember which one of us did.
I think it was you.
Okay, and I love, it was great getting to know Chris and hearing what he's doing with Soma. I did not know the Redwall story that was shared. That was new to me. But also, man, there was just a lot of things sort of in Chris's message that were really, really, really good for me, and really encouraging. Just as somebody who, I think if you look from the outside, you meet Chris and you see somebody who's like, man, you can get imposter syndrome pretty quick around a guy like Chris, because he is so very confident and very cool and like all of those things. And then to hear, some of the behind the scenes doubt moments and like we were at this point where it seemed like everything was going to get lost and we were deciding whether or not to hang on, and we had offers on the table to back out, and we decided to stick with it because we thought this is what God was telling us to do. I'm like, okay, I've been in those moments. I know what those feel like. I've experienced them firsthand. They're not super glamorous when you're in them, let me tell you. They're glamorous when you talk about them later, but when you're in them, man, you're in the freaking thick of it. And having been through a couple of those in this past year, man, like just leading an organization and where we were 6 months ago, was a very stressful season. It was a very difficult season. And I carried the brunt of that on me for that season without needing to, really. And so I think there was a lot in Chris's story that was encouraging. Like, I'm not alone in these experiences of really faith stretching moments leading an organization. I'm not alone in these moments when it seems like I might be doing something crazy here, and other people might look from the outside in and think that what I'm doing is a little crazy here, but I think this is the right call and I'm going to stick with it, even though I might lose a lot because of it. And I think that, and then to see God come out and provide on the other side of it in ways that I couldn't have done on my own. And then to be like, man, I really wish I wouldn't have stressed myself out so stinking much and just trusted God to begin with. It was just cool to hear. It was cool to hear Chris talk about that from his own story. And obviously like super compelling presenter, leader, speaker. And I got to, I think one of the coolest things about NCMS is that it's not hundreds of people. Those speakers don't get, swept off into a green room afterwards somewhere. You wanted to meet Caitlin Glass. There was a line of people waiting to just chat with her afterwards. And, during one of the openings that Bubba was leading, I got to just sit outside and me and Chris just shared my story of Lutz, his story of Soma, and we just hung out for like 40 minutes. And that was really cool for me to get a chance to do and just be able to sit with him. I think that's something that's unique to NCMS. It's not just, wow, that guy's story from stage was really cool, but let's just sit and have coffee on the back patio and talk. And we got a chance to do that, which was awesome.
Well, and we're trying really hard, right, Zach, to kind of have people in the space at NCMS specifically, and also in the NCMC Discord. We're trying to kind of have people that will sit with you, that won't just kind of be rocks that are skipping across the top of a lake. And I know that we can't control that, and we're not trying to control that. What we're trying to do is we're trying to, again, just introduce people to each other so that we can create this relational moment, right? Like Zach, you were talking about that maybe before we started rolling, that you wanted to kind of emphasize the relationship aspect of NCMS. Yeah.
I'll touch on a few things real quick. One, in terms of, I'll come back to that, but just before I forget it, in terms of the speakers, for me, I work I help do NCMS. I also work in creative ministry spaces as my day job. And then I also am helping do this D&D podcast, right? So just hearing from this whole collection of, from Butch to Caitlin to Chris to Brandon, hearing them talk about being able to lead large creative teams to accomplish big creative efforts. And some of the brass tacks of what that takes was really, really cool. Jamie and John have been friends of ours for a long time. Hearing them talk about building a team was really cool. I just was reminded that like doing this happens because we all kind of gathered around the table and we formed a team and we're doing it. And from this to doing a small D&D podcast, like it's always a matter of finding the right people that you're willing to partner with and do ministry with. And even if you're trying to be a solo channel, you know, that team might just be people in the background that are helping, you know, who know how to do video editing and are willing to teach you or are willing to pray for you or are willing to mentor you and coach you. So there were so many people that I was really, really encouraged by. But to your point, yes, like one of the things that was so cool is you mentioned that Caitlin Glass, she's a well-known voice actress and people were in a line to talk to her. But later that night we had Lux service. We're just hanging out, getting ready and playing Pogs or, you know, the dice thrown Pogs.
With Slam Throne, baby. Yeah.
How many people get to do that, right? Like not as,
6.
but like the reality of just getting to say like, yeah, not only was this person who voice acted Winry there, and that's very cool, but I also got to like meet her and talk to her at a human level. He was hanging out with us at Twitch and we were placing Slam. Like that was really, really so cool. And it's just such a part of, as we look ahead at future years and even the rest of this year, we're thinking about what is this collective and what are we really trying to focus on? So much of it is creating spaces where you can build that team and meet people and stay connected. So like having these network groups that people can join where they can have a community where they don't feel like they're having to do it alone. They can, on a monthly basis, talk to other people who are in this very niche form of ministry with them about the challenges and the obstacles and the wins that other people just might not get. And then even at NCMS next year, really trying to focus on this idea of who can we bring in, who are already part of the community, who get it, so that we can really, really lean into that relational part of it. You know, where it's the conversations you have over lunch and dinner with someone who's on the same path as you. And all of a sudden you're realizing, hey, wait a minute, maybe there's resources that we can share or ideas that we can share, or we could just be praying for one another. Maybe I'm a little bit less alone than I thought I was. And all of that, I think, is just, I think it's really exciting and really powerful and something that we want to be helping to facilitate even more moving forward.
Yeah. I mean, in a big kind of way, like it's a major effort of ours. It's not going to be something that is, you know, secondary, right? We want to make sure that the time that you spend with us is not just valuable from a large group standpoint, but we want you to walk away with relationships. We want you to walk away with people that are your brothers and sisters in arms that you can, man, I'm having a bad day. I'm going to not message Mark or Bubba or Zach. I'm going to go to my network and I'm going to talk to my network about some of the issues that I'm going with, that I'm having today. So I happen to be in our server. I can see the different conversations that are happening. I don't ever, you know, engage in any of the things, but I love seeing that people are doing that in our networks right now. Like that is, it's so, it warms my heart. It's very uplifting for me to know that, hey, this thing that we created is working, right? Like maybe not to the extent that we would really hope that it would be working, but like it is working. And it not hitting our standards only just causes us to move further and to press on. And so let's talk a little bit about that. Let's, you know, we've kind of talked about the past, and, you know, kind of where we're at right now. Let's talk about where we're going and how we're going to get there and some of the ideas that maybe we have. We're not going to talk ad nauseum about them because they're still being formed and fleshed out. But some of the things that we're looking to do in the coming weeks, months, and over the next year or so. Zach, let's just start off with Kite String, right? Like that was one of the things that I don't know that we explained it super well at NCMS. And I don't know that that's like a slam on us or anything like that. Like it's not a fully formed idea yet, but it's something that we want to kind of invite people into.
Yeah, one of the things we really want to be doing over the next 12 months is building out this platform, which the ambitious goal is that if you are doing any kind of nerd ministry, whatever that means to you, that this would be the place to go for your resources, for you and for your team. So we are just gathering content from all these different people. It very much is not us saying, hey, here's us making a bunch of amazing content that, we are the experts, but it's saying, hey, we've gotten to know a lot of experts and we would love to take and distill the cumulative expertise that they have and make that available to you. And so, what exactly that will look like is kind of still, that's what we're figuring out, because some of it is, here's someone who would be amazing for it, but they're really busy. And so it's hard to get their time and here's someone else who's got stuff and it's maybe more readily available. And so it's a mix of what we want to prioritize and also who's available to help us out. But we're just going to start gathering stuff. And that could be anything from, hey, here's people who have made several really great Discords, and we've made a course that you could go through, a series of videos that will teach you how to train your Discord moderators, how to set up a Discord server, how to make that effective and meaningful and really have community there that matters. Another one might be, hey, here's how to just use free resources to make awesome stuff for your OBS so that you don't have to feel like you have to go pay a bunch of money for expensive overlays. You could just, maybe that's more accessible. There's such a range. Hey, what does it look like to go and start D&D at your local game store? Let's provide some videos about that from people who have done it. And so we're just going to start putting those together, gathering them and making those available for free for people that want to access those, and try to just take the very best expertise and knowledge in this even though we've been doing this now you guys have been doing this like 10 years, it's still very much an emergent ministry space. It's so the people who are the experts have only been doing it for so long. And so we could take the people who are the front runners that have the most skill and experience and try to just bottle that and give it to people for free to access and train their team with.
Yeah. And that's the heartbeat of the collective is we're merely creating space, sandboxes for people to play in and, places for people to learn and grow relationally. Just because we're running it doesn't mean that we're necessarily the smartest people in the room. Everybody knows that a good leader surrounds themselves with better leaders. That's the only way that you get better. So
I think too, there's, lots of iteration in our space. And I think people can kind of get hooked to one specific version of it. So I had a conversation with somebody recently who reached out and they said they're a college student wanting to get involved in gaming ministry and joined our church's Discord, wanted to know how we build it. And I think within like 3 minutes, I was like, this guy should not be talking to me. He should be talking, he should be talking to Jamie from Satellite Gaming. And, I just said, hey, like, I think that the person you should be talking to is Jamie, and I'm going to connect you with him. You guys can follow up, because I think what you really want to do is run a game club out of your physical church. His dad's a pastor at a physical church. He's in ministry school, yada, yada, yada. And it was like, okay, hey, like the one of the problems is that there's not really a hub or a spot for people to go to see all of the outside the box stuff that's happening, right? Like we're talking digital church, which is completely different than what, say, Pastor Dewson does, who's a pastor who's doing digital evangelism, which is very different than what Deadly Dill does, which with the Deadly Fam, which is, this huge, massive Christian and non-Christian community. And it's a gaming ministry, which is different than digital live streaming evangelism, which is way different than what Love Thy Nerd does with all of their in-person physical stuff and hybrid stuff digitally in Discord in between physical mission trips, which is completely different from what Satellite does, which is completely different from what Seven Admirals does, which is completely different from what the next organization does. And so like each of us have found a niche and a flavor of saying like, hey, there is not a definitive roadmap for this, but so many people encounter one of these organizations or one of these individuals and think this is the way it should be done. And so one of my hearts for Kite String and what we're doing is just to present a wider range of things and say, listen, if all of these things are possible, then perhaps there's something in you that isn't an imitation that's also possible. Maybe there's something that an idea or something that you have in your heart that you're like, man, this doesn't fit. I need to audition for somebody else's calling. And I need to get like the microphone and the setup, and I need to be really energetic because I need to be able to imitate, Pastor Susie, and I need to be able to do that. Like, or, hey, I really want to reach people, but I'm not sure how to do that. I really think, Pastor Mark and what Lutz is doing, this digital stuff, like we really need to be able to do that. And it's like, maybe you shouldn't be doing, maybe it needs to look different. And I think the various iterations of what is going on in the space and what God's doing is very beautiful. And I'm encouraged to have people introduced to more of its iteration and more of its creativity, because I think it'll open up room for new things to be birthed that don't exist yet. Because when you see there's so many and such a wide range of stuff, you're less inclined to imitate and more inclined to ask God to lead you into something fresh and new. And so that, I think that's one of the things that gets me really excited about Kite String is just, man, it's going to equip people, I have no doubt, but I'm looking for the people who just ends up like grabbing this from one person, this from another organization, this from that person, and they just, they make something new. I think that'll be really exciting to see.
Yeah. I think it's really interesting. You brought up an aspect that I remembered, but I forgot as soon as I remembered it about NCMS. And it's that, yes, we create a permissive space for you to do the thing that God is calling you into. But there also is a bit of critique in that, right? Like hey, I'm hearing you say something. I know you a little bit, or maybe I don't know you at all. And I'm just like practicing a little bit of discernment, and without being like the friends of Job. I'm going to kind of speak in and give you a little unsolicited advice that, hey, maybe you shouldn't do that thing. It's not maybe you shouldn't do anything, but maybe you shouldn't do that thing. It sounds to me like you're doing that because everybody around you is also doing that thing. What was really interesting is, and I'm gonna dox him here. I'm probably one of 15 people that had a conversation with Pones about podcasting, and I listened to him ask the same exact set of questions to every single person that he talked to. And that didn't frustrate me. That made my heart sing. I was like, dude, this guy he's looking for wisdom. He's looking for help on what he should or should not be doing. And what's good is I heard like just about everybody say the same thing. Hey, dude, it sounds like you should do this, but I can't tell you how many people that I've talked to that it's like, hey man, I don't know if that's it for you. I really hope you find your thing. Maybe you can join us, or you can join Lux, or you can join Satellite or somebody else. But I don't know if you starting your own thing is really it. And that's the kind of wisdom you only get from a council of people, right? Like if you're around a lot of people that you've seen either succeed or fail. We're dealing with it right now with several people that it's like, hey, you're doing a brand new endeavor. It's going to suck a lot for you. Do you have, what Mark has come to know as the grit? Do you have the grit to kind of make it through these rough seasons? So, all right. So it's Kite String. Kite String is going to be like a continual learning platform that is asynchronous, meaning that you can join a course, you can hop in, and you can do the things that you need to do. And the beauty of it is free. Like we don't have a subscription model locked to this. We don't have a trajectory for a subscription model locked to this. If you get on Kite String and you do your own thing, there's nobody that's stopping you from charging for the stuff that you have on there. But as far as the collective goes, our hope is just to equip people. We want the value to be in that. Because honestly, when we go and we fund for NCMS and these other things that we're doing, we're trying to show the value to our sponsors. We're trying to show the value to these organizations like Stadia and One Child that are looking at the things that we're doing and going, oh yeah, like Reliant, every year Reliant's like, absolutely, we want to be a part of the things that you guys are doing. We only get there because of the people that join us on the journey. So that's one thing. What are some of the other things, Zach, that we're kind of looking at doing?
The other thing that I think is probably the single most significant is we really want to lean into this idea, which again, I think has always been true. We just want to really emphasize that what we are is we call this the Nerd Culture Ministry Underground podcast. Our Discord is the Nerd Culture Ministry Collective. And I think that matters. That was intentional language. We are a collection of people who are just on this journey. We're trying to figure this out and are working together. We have these network groups, trying to create resources for those network groups. But the hope is that this collective is a thing that's happening year round, right? Where these are groups of people that are meeting on a monthly basis, who are doing life together, supporting each other, caring for one another. And that the summit really becomes just the annual gathering point and sort of on-ramp for that community. So if you have been curious about it, these are groups that you can join throughout the year, but you might feel like it would be helpful to meet some of these people in person. Or maybe you've been in one of these groups and it's just a really nice chance to get to break bread together. The whole point is, hey, annually, all of these groups that are meeting all throughout the year and are pouring into one another and are going through these resources and getting better at their craft, then annually get to come together in one place in person, break bread, do workshops together, listen to keynotes together. And that's just, it is just that kind of catalytic moment within what's happening year round. So I think that's a big part of it, is next year really leaning into that idea that NCMS is a gathering of people who are either wanting to be part of these networks or already in these networks, but are part of a bigger thing that's happening really all throughout the year. And so you'll probably see less total keynotes next year. We won't have zero, but we may only even have one or two key people that are kind of a name that you would recognize from outside of the Nerd Culture Ministry world, your Butch Hartmans or Caitlin Glasses of the world. And more of the people that are going to be speaking will be people who are practitioners in the space who are just sharing. I remember, I think it's a foreword of a book that C.S. Lewis wrote where he talked about, like, I'm just another student in the class sharing my notes with you, which is a very humble thing for someone like C.S. Lewis to say. But that heart posture of people coming in just saying, look, I'm just sharing my notes and wanting you to be able to see those. And I think that that's very much the attitude that we want to take, is having workshop heavy chances for people to just say, hey, you're also doing YouTube. Let's learn how to do that better together. Hey, you're also doing a ministry in a local game shop. Let's look at how to do that better together, whatever that is. So yeah, I think that's a really big part of it.
That was one of the big things that people really appreciated about bare minimum this year, was they said, hey, thank you for not over programming. Thank you for leaving space and leaving time for us to connect. And one of the things that I would like to see is network meetups at NCMS. Now we're not going to uncap the space, because the places that we're looking at, the place specifically that we're looking at in Orlando, if you missed that, we're going to be in Orlando this next year. It has limited space, but it's a part of a large organization. And so we want to give the people that are going to be there access to it, and access to these people and to those minds and to those networks and all of the global reach that they have. But we also don't want to miss out on the fact that we may not have those people always, but we will have each other. And so giving you an opportunity to spend time with the people that you've been walking through the trenches with for the last year or more is important. And so if you're not a part of a small group, if you're not a part of one of our networks, you got to get in there and be a part of it. We're going to be opening up applications for people to host one of these networks and also to join. And so if you're not already a part of one by the time that you're hearing this, go to our Discord, ncmcollective.com. We'll take you straight there and join one of them. And if there's nothing that's there for you, I've gotten probably 3 people that are like, hey, Bubba, I'm ready to start a network. I love that. Let's check that out. Let's look into it. Let's see kind of what that looks like for you and for the people that are in our community. Even if that means it's, 2 or 3 people, I think that it's totally worth it if you can commit to being there on a monthly basis and, kind of living life together. Like Mark and I, we talk all the time. We'll just text each other or, we'll talk on stream or, in meetings or podcast stuff or whatever. But if you don't have those avenues, this might be a good one because you can feel all alone.
Yeah, and to
you
be
guys
clear,
have mentioned there's really just two questions you guys talk about, right? Mark, can you? I think it's simpler than it maybe seems to leave one of these and to get into one of them.
First off, the best networks are like 2 or 3 people. I think people get discouraged when they only have 1 or 2 or 3 people in their group. I've been leading small groups and leading small group ministries now for the past, 15 years, 16 years. Most small groups that start small, as soon as you get to 6 to 8 people, you wish they were small. So these networks are very similar. They ask 2 main questions once a month for an hour a month. What roadblocks are you facing? What are you celebrating? We want to take time to celebrate together, train ourselves to not get jealous of one another, train ourselves to not competitive with one another, learn how to celebrate what is going on. You would think that the sharing your roadblocks is the hardest thing. It is not. It's learning to celebrate other people's celebrations. That's the hardest thing. And it's probably the most important thing that can happen in a space is your ability to not compete, but to complement your ability, which is, I've been literally saying that since Megazord in 2022. Our heart was to bring people together to not compete, but to complement. And that continues in our networks. And so, literally I'm heading to my network in 9 minutes.
We'll see if we make it. Yeah.
We'll see if we make it. Yeah. But in about 9 minutes, I'm heading over to my network. And it's, I lead an org leaders network, and we have anywhere between like 3 and 6 people a month, that are able to show up for it. And, each of us are in different stages. Some of us have staff. Some of us are solo. Some of us are fundraising. Some of us never want to do this full time. And when we're doing it as like a side gig, but we're trying to figure out how to do the organizational leadership piece. And it's a really life-giving thing just to have a place where you can come and say, hey, this is the stuff that happened this month that was really hard. Hey, I'm just running into this challenge. Who has also run into this challenge before? And sometimes we actually have someone in the room who has, and that's helpful. And then, also we just know each other's personal lives. Like we know each other, what's going on in each other's individual personal lives, and we're there to pray for one another so that we're not isolated. And it's also just really helpful to know that there's other people who are struggling with things similar. Like there is at some point for at least one person, every NCMS planning, where we are like, one of us is like, we want to hit the eject button, and somebody else is like, don't do that. We're okay. It's going to be okay. And honestly, the network this last time was one of those don't hit the eject buttons for me. Like I went to my network and I was so overwhelmed with, as we were approaching NCMS a couple of months out, shared with my network what was going on. And I'm confessing this to people who've bought tickets. So not your best place to confess, I don't want to do this, with the people who've purchased tickets for it. And each one of them just expressed how much NCMS had meant to them and how they don't care even what the production level is. They just want to be there and be together. And that was fuel in the tank to push through and get NCMS across the table and through the finish line. And they were a major player in making that happen this past year. And so, it's not a small thing, and we need them as well. So.
Yeah.
I really hope that if you're listening to this as someone who is doing some level of any kind of nerd ministry or is thinking about doing any level of nerd ministry, one of the things that I would hope you hear is what it looks like. We've talked about all these different forms, whether it's planning NCMS or doing Lux Digital Church or doing Love Thy Nerd or doing all kinds of other things. But some of these really practical things, like the reality that Mark just talked about of as we're planning NCMS, having moments where at a very genuine level, we're like, man, is this like, we have these like crisis of faith, for lack of a better word, right? Like, man, is this, should we just pull the plug? Is this even the right thing? And I think if you're doing this, you might be like, what I'm doing, what does this really look like? For other people, it must be so different. And I hope you hear the reality that what it looks like to do ministry and be doing it well often looks like moments of intense doubt, feeling overwhelmed, moments of intense faith, huge victories, doing that alongside people who are working with you, people who are not working with you, but are working in adjacent fields who can encourage you. surrounding yourself with encouragement and support. And I just, that's all part of it. That is what it looks like. It's all these really practical writing contracts and working out deals with people and what it's going to cost to get them paid, and the long grinds of sending out tons of messages and not getting messages back. It's having moments of doubt and then feeling the win of when you're standing there in the room and you're seeing 150 people or whatever all worshiping together and feeling that huge swell of encouragement. All of that is just part of it. And so if you're like, man, like you just said, Mark, being able to hear from Chris, I'm hoping that for some people, maybe this is a similar thing for you, that you're like, man, I've been there. I've been trying to do this and I feel alone, or I've felt really downtrodden. That's part of it. Get connected to a community. You don't have to do it alone, and you can be encouraged by other people who can remind you that this is all just kind of part of the process, and we're all just kind of figuring it out as we go.
Well, we wanted to be pretty raw with you guys. Now, again, we didn't go down to the bone on all these things, but I think we got pretty close to that with the last statement that Mark made about, hey, every single one of us have thought about the eject button as far as NCMS goes. Last time it was me. This time it was Mark. And the only reason we were able to progress was because we talked each other down, like as a team, not just Mark to me and me to Mark, but you need people around you to help you see clearly. And you need people that are going to speak into you well, and that they're going to speak biblical truth to you, and they're going to practice legitimate discernment, not just their own feelings, kind of a deal. And so we want to give you space for that. That is the whole point of the collective, is that it is one unified body moving forward. Now, unity does not mean uniformity. Like we were saying earlier, we don't need 2,500 Lux digital churches, or 2,500 Love Thy Nerds, or 2,500 satellite gamings, or anything like that. We don't need that stuff. What we need is you moving in the direction that God has called you uniquely to do the thing that only you can do. Because if we could do it, we'd be doing it, and we're not. So don't make us do it. You do it yourself, okay? But yeah, I mean, we want to encourage you to join us in Orlando next year. If you're not already, like I said, in the Discord, ncmcollective.com will take you straight there. All of our NCMS stuff from the past years that we've done it, this is our third one that we've done, they're all available on ncmsummit.com, or you can get to them through our Discord at ncmcollective.com, like I said. But we want to give you an opportunity, if you've never experienced it, to go through and just watch all of the workshops, watch all of the keynotes. You can kind of see the heart behind who we are and what we do. And maybe God's calling you to be a part of our team. And we'd love to talk to you more about that, to see if there's maybe a spot that you can fill that is in our blinders, or that we can absolutely 100% see as a pothole. But it all happens by people talking and being bold. The whole reason any of this stuff exists outside of Jesus, right, obviously, is because Zach got a wild hair one day and contacted Mark. And so then Mark contacted us at Love Thy Nerd, and it just kind of snowballed and dominoed after that. So none of us could have done this by ourselves. We could only have done it together. And we want to just continue to create those spaces for you digitally and physically. So let's get in touch. Let's hang out, join a network, start a network, or just kind of come and be a part of the space where God is moving. We're moving, and I promise you want to move with the movers. So closing thoughts, guys, before we get out of here?
There's a prayer that I wanted to close with, that there's a guy, Adrian Van Kom, he's a priest and a psychologist and a professor, who wrote a book that is it's become a favorite for me. But he ended every chapter with a prayer. And I keep thinking about it as we're having this conversation. I think it would be a really good thing to kind of start wrapping up with. And if there's anything else you want to add, Mark. But he said, I'll just kind of pull highlights from it. He said, God, prevent me from being caught in any social movement, any missionary enterprise, no matter how beautiful and holy that would not be a movement meant for me from eternity. Give me the wisdom and strength to be wholly present to my daily task instead of being more present to the undertakings God did not will for me. Grant me the humility to accept the resources God has allowed for me. And then he goes on to say, infuse me with wisdom that clarifies my motives, that liberates me from the curse of enslavement to popular opinion. And let the splendor of the works of others blind me not to the hidden splendor of my own endeavors. Let me not abuse myself merely to please others by taking on good works they are engaged in. Forgive me and heal me when I abuse the general acclaim for a great and holy enterprise as an alibi to escape my own calling. And man, as I've thought about what we're doing and nerd culture ministry as a whole, that has resonated with me for years. That idea of forgive me when I abuse the general acclaim for a great and holy enterprise as an alibi to escape my own calling. I just would pray that anyone listening to this, that anyone who's part of the collective would hear that what your calling is. You might see something else, and that is beautiful, and it may not be the thing for you. And so may that prayer be your prayer as well, to figure out what that calling looks like on your life. Dang,
that's fantastic. That's really good. Well, hey, we're going to get out of here. Mark, Zach, hey, man, thanks you guys for being here this morning. I say this morning, it was pretty early when we started. Not early for Mark. Mark's on the East Coast. He cheats. But for the rest of us, kind of was. Hey, we're going to get out of here. That's it for this season of the NCMU podcast. Join us next season as we dig more into the people and the thoughts and the stories behind nerd culture ministry all over the world. We're out of here, but if no one else tells you it, just remember it's true. Jesus loves you, nerds.